Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane 2 will not be close. And if you guys have been living under a rock, this past weekend was UFC 321, where it was Tom Aspinall's first undisputed heavyweight championship title defense against none other than Ciryl Gane. And going into this fight, Tom Aspinall was a huge betting favorite at around minus 350 odds. And everyone thought that he was going to beat Ciryl Gane in round one, maybe by submission, maybe by knockout. Everyone, though, thought that this was Tom Aspinall's fight to lose, that he was just easily going to win this one, and there's no way that Ciryl Gane beats him. However, Ciryl Gane comes to the fight in the best shape we've ever seen him in, and he looks amazing out there. He's quick on his feet, he's quick with the jab, quick with the straight, he's looking good out there. I mean, Ciryl Gane even defended one of Tom Aspinall's takedowns, which he was unable to do against John Jones when they fought each other. You know, we'll talk later about how that defense exactly happened, but nonetheless, he stopped a takedown. Tom Aspinall has never been denied a takedown in his UFC career until against Ciryl Gane last weekend. But then with 25 seconds left in the round one, you already had Tom Aspinall's nose bloodied up. It might not have been broken, but it started bleeding off of Ciryl Gane's jab. So Ciryl Gane was ahead by a few strikes on Tom Aspinall. This wasn't anything crazy like a 10-8 or 10-7 like the internet would have you believe. But it was looking 10-9 in Ciryl Gane's favor. And then all of a sudden, Ciryl Gane just says, stop, hits him with two fingers in both eyeballs, using his head like a bowling ball, and his fingers, I cannot even put this on YouTube because it is that bad of a video, they go about knuckle deep in Tom Aspinall's eyeball, and the fight stopped right then and there. The refs and doctors were talking to Tom Aspinall, seeing if he can continue, and multiple times Tom Aspinall said he could not continue, and ultimately the fight was ruled a no contest. This wasn't a forfeit on Aspinall's part, and this wasn't a DQ on Gane's part. It was just a no contest, and Tom went to the hospital. Now in the hospital, you have Twitter doctors diagnosing all of his conditions from all the footage that they saw on Tom Aspinall's YouTube channel. You know, everyone's saying that Tom Aspinall is okay, this, that, and the third, when I mean, in the reality of the case is we don't know his condition. I mean, they said it was nothing dangerous, nothing like crazy long-term damage, but he had fingers knuckle deep in his eyes. I'm not a doctor by any means, but I can't imagine someone's fingers that deep in my eyeballs, and then I'm going to come back in a couple minutes and just be ready to fight again and defend my World Heavyweight Championship. Like, that is insane. And my question initially is, and we're going to get into the breakdown and prediction of the fight of Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane too, but I just quickly want to ask, how is this not a disqualification? Like, how in the sport of UFC is Petr Yan up 3-1 on Aljamain Sterling, and then he knees him in the head, and then Aljo, if you thought Tom Aspinall was faking anything, which I personally don't, you should have seen Aljo. He was on the canvas like, oh. Dude, it looked like a D-list movie actor out there. It was just the worst thing I've ever watched. And you know what happened in that fight? The guy was winning 3-1 rounds with the accidental knee to the head that Aljamain was completely fine from. They gave him the DQ, took away his championship belt, and gave it to Aljamain Sterling. But in this fight, when the champion, the big favorite, and it was a very close round one. I'll admit, I think Tom Aspinall was slightly losing. But he gets that blatant of an eye poke after he got eye poked earlier on his takedown, which was the only reason he didn't get that takedown. And you do not DQ Ciryl Gane. I mean, even if you didn't DQ him, it looked like they might not have even taken a point. Now, maybe they would have. Hopefully, the ref would have. But for this not to be a DQ is a little bit shocking in my point. But nonetheless, it's accidental. A lot of stuff's accidental when people get DQ'd. Errol Hawani brought up a good point that you're watching a basketball game, like nobody means to commit these fouls, or in a football game, these early offsides, but you still get penalized for it because a rule is a rule. If you were accidentally going too fast down the hill in your car and you're going 15 over and you get a ticket, you telling the cop it's an accident is not going to get you out of the ticket. You still broke the rules and you have a consequence to pay for that. That's how it is. But based off everything I tell you, you would be like, all right, the general public's probably mad at Ciryl Gane, annoyed that this happened, and there'll probably be a rematch, and it sucks that this happened to Tom, but Ciryl Gane, like, what a guy for doing this. Like, absolutely horrible right there, right? But no, the general public of the MMA, at least what we're seeing online, is thinking that Tom Aspinall is the wrong for not continuing on this fight. And there's been basically no ill will towards Ciryl Gane. Not that there should be. I do believe it was an accident, but how are we letting him off scotch-free when it was his hand placement that he did on his own, unprovoked, that caused us no contest to happen? But then, the guy who just got jousted in the eyes, we're going to throw shade towards him? I mean, you even had Dana White at the press conference getting asked about this. And not that Dana White needs to bash Ciryl Gane, because I don't think that's constructive or the right answer there, but He was not backing Tom Aspinall at all. He was saying, yeah, only Tom knows if he could have continued or not. And sucks to see this happen, but that was Tom's decision, this and that. And he was just very irate with the situation, not giving Tom any benefit of the doubt. And to bring you guys this video of Herrick Insider News, it kind of makes sense from Dana's shoes for him to feel that way, because you have Tom Aspinall's coach and father releasing to the media that he wants Tom Aspinall to leave the UFC for boxing after his contract is up, which is only a few fights from now. So if Dana White sees his heavyweight champion leaving the UFC for boxing, I'm sure he's not going to be happy. But then on top of that, Tom Aspinall himself said that if his buddy in the heavyweight division, who is around number 10th ranked or so right now, if he gets up to a title shot, Tom Aspinall is going to vacate the title to let him fight for it. Now, I completely disagree with that take. I think that is one of the silliest ideas, because I do still think Tom Aspinall has the potential to be the heavyweight GOAT of the UFC. It's his words and what he said, and I could see why Dana White might not be too quick to back him up there, but let's digress and let's get right into the breakdown of this fight. So leaving UFC 321, Dana White did confirm, he said he normally never books fights this quick, but he said that it will be Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane 2. This fight will happen next for the championship. We don't have a timeline yet on when that happened. Your guess is as good as mine. You got people like DC saying they get in there December. You got other people thinking they'll get in there in March because Volk's going to be February pay-per-view. I have a video about that you could go check out. But then Ilya's probably going to be January pay-per-view. Maybe Khamzat's in there somewhere. So Tom might not be fighting until March. Hopefully this fight takes place ASAP, since no huge injuries if the doctor was right in Abu Dhabi. But it gets really interesting, because looking at what we learned from this fight, going into UFC 321, Tom Aspinall, as I said, was a minus 350 favorite. It was not going to be close on paper. But then, as I said, it looked like Ciryl Gane was getting a 10-9 round if he didn't get the point taken away, and he was going to win that round. He was giving Tom the biggest trouble he's ever had in his UFC career to date. And now we have to look at what we learned from this fight. Real quickly, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we are almost at 1,200 subscribers. We're 10 subscribers away. So if you want to hit that button and get multiple high-quality UFC uploads every day with breaking news that you won't get elsewhere, and you'll get it quicker than anywhere else, hit that subscribe button. But let's get back to the video. We learned that Ciryl Gane's improved a lot from the Jon Jones fight, and he's a lot better of a fighter than we give him credit for, and he could handle Tom Aspinall. It's a closer fight than people thought. He's quick on the feet, great movement, and quick with the striking, and I mean, he was already blooding up Tom's nose and was giving him some damage. I will give you that. And Ciryl Gane did defend Tom Aspinall's takedown, so he's not just going to get run over in the grappling. Maybe. We're going to touch on this in about 30 seconds here. But Gane did look like the better kickboxer from just what we saw in round 1 for 4.5 minutes. That's all we could say. But it was by a slim margin. On paper, he was only 3 significant strikes ahead of Tom Aspinall, and you know, every strike is not equal. Some were better than others. All in all, Gane was slightly ahead, but it was a very close fight, and it was very early in this 5-round fight. But now let's look at the case for Tom Aspinall, because all that being said, you would think, especially with the comments that you're reading online, you're going to be gaslit to think that Ciryl Gane's going to win this next fight. I mean, the odds are definitely going to be a lot closer on paper, and this is not financial advice, but if those odds are, if Tom is below a minus 200 favorite, I am going to be hammering that money line. Not advice, but that's just what I'm doing, because I still think that Tom Aspinall is going to win this fight, and I will tell you why. First and foremost, Tom is going to come into this fight livid. I mean, how the MMA community is treating him right now is just unbelievable. Tom has been a company guy who's done everything that the UFC wanted him to, waiting for this Jon Jones fight that was a fairy tale. It was a fable. It was never going to come true. Tom Aspinall, in the middle of his prime, when he's finally champion, waits 14 or 15 months for this fight, and it never comes to fruition. But then he finally gets a fight with Ciryl Gane. He accepts the fight, even though Gane turned that fight down multiple times in the past. Now that Tom's champion, he's a nice guy. He'll let Gane have the fight. Even though he could have denied it and just did the same thing to Gane, exactly what Gane did to Tom. Because Gane was ducking Tom worse than Jones was ducking Tom. This was crazy. And then an illegal move happens from Ciryl Gane to Tom Aspinall, the betting favorite, who most people who think right about MMA would still think is the better fighter. He gets illegally eye poked, not once, but twice, and the second time was knuckle deep in both eyes. He can't see. The fight gets called off, and he is the bad guy in this situation. You have the MMA community outing him, and your boss Dana White outing him. Like, how is Tom supposed to feel? He's gonna come into this fight on crazy time, man. I think he's gonna try to knock the head off of Ciryl Gane. Like, I think Tom Aspinall is going to be on a villain arc in this next fight. But to get off just how I think the narrative is gonna be in Tom's mind, let's look at the actual facts. This was ruled a no contest, and Tom got 4.5 minutes to figure out Ciryl Gane. Now, you could say the same about Ciryl Gane about Tom Aspinall, but there were no tricks up Aspinall's sleeve in the 4.5 minutes we saw. We did see a head kick, which was cool, and he did develop the spinning back kick at age 32, but those aren't game-changing moves right there. We knew Tom was going to go for a takedown. He did. It got stuffed by an illegal eye poke, which you better believe they're going to be watching for those eye pokes like a hawk next fight. If one eye poke comes, that's going to be an immediate point. They might even DQ him if it's bad, because they are not going to let this happen again. So we got that out of the way. If he can't eye poke, there's a very good chance that takedown goes through in the first fight, and that means it's going to go through in the second fight, which is not good for Gane. Because in the few years that it's been since the John Jones fight to now, Gane will not be able to make up in the wrestling and grappling department to be able to deal with Tom Aspinall adequately. It's just not going to happen. Very, very, very unlikely. And we mentioned, we knew this was Tom's game plan. The round one looked like how it was. He gives some strikes, tries to get a KO, tries to get a takedown, but none happened to Ciryl Gane's credit. That was good for him. But nothing new was learned there. What was new to Tom, he sees how Ciryl Gane moves around. Ciryl Gane is the best kickboxing movement heavyweight we've ever seen. And you can't really emulate that style, not even from a physical standpoint, but a mental standpoint. How is he going to know what to expect when no literal other heavyweight can move like Ciryl Gane can? But now Tom basically had a full first round where Ciryl Gane was throwing it all out there, trying to get these knockouts, throwing these strikes, having this good movement. But Tom knows now what to expect going into the next fight, and there will be no improvements, nothing new that Ciryl Gane can pull out of his bag that he wasn't already doing in this fight. So I think Tom's going to come in with a better game plan, and it was already a very close fight. Despite what internet has you believe, it was a very close fight in this first round. Tom's going to be able to wrestle next time. There won't be any eye pokes. He's going to get the takedown, and even if he doesn't, he has him figured out on the feet. Tom Aspinall is a very smart fighter and has a very smart team, and he's going to know what it looks like and feels like to fight Ciryl Gane. And they're going to come in with a better strategy and game plan to beat Ciryl Gane, and you better believe it's going to happen. Now, that is all I have for you guys in this video. That is my opinion. I think that Tom Aspinall is going to knock out or submit Ciryl Gane next fight. I will be putting money on it. Never advice, just my opinion. But you guys let me know down below. What did you think about 321? Should that fight have gone on? And going into the rematch now, who do you think wins with this information that you now have? Will Gane win or will Tom Aspinall win? You guys let me know. I want to know what you guys think. It seems like the MMA community is very divided on this, but with that being said, I will see you guys later this week in the next video. Hit subscribe and like, helps me out a lot. Deuces.